and we are preparing to live stream. I'm going to start the music. Supposed to hear the music? No. We are preparing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. Welcome to Go Dream Big. We are a group of professional women of Indian origin, currently situated across the globe. We have two goals. One is to build a strong network of professional women who can leverage each other's experience. And two, we are committed to helping the upcoming generation make informed choices in your careers. Why us? While there is a lot of information out there, it is hard to sift through all of that and make meaningful decisions for yourself. On our panels, you will see real women address how they balanced different aspects of life to move their careers forward. You will get exposed to the tremendous interdisciplinary opportunities out there. And we hope you hear something that resonates with you and gets you going. In our online public gatherings in the past, we have addressed topics of urgent social relevance and discussed careers that make an impact within that context. The first time we came live, we talked how various careers impacted our fight against COVID. We had a doctor, a physiotherapist, two engineers from different engineering specializations, a biotech engineer and a manufacturing engineer, a biologist, a finance manager from biotech, a banker, a program manager from the insurance sector, an economics professor, and an entrepreneur joined the panel. Second time, we came with a panel that focused on well-being, mental health. And we had a psychiatrist, a lawyer, an arts educator, an urban planner, a media producer, and a yoga instructor joined that panel. The third time, we spoke on building thriving communities. A teacher, a business consultant, an events curator, an engineer, a farmer, and a geologist was with us that time. The full recording of all our sessions are available on the channel where you're watching us. And we've also a playlist of career journeys of the ladies from these various career tracks I just mentioned. We hope you check them out, and we hope something there resonates with you and gets you going. And now, without further ado, let me hand the floor to Jaya Padma, who will kick off today's session focusing on a sustainable future for planet Earth.
Hi, thanks, Nive. It feels great to be back at my school. Many of us here that you see on screen are from the same school. And it's a privilege and honor for us to be speaking with you. And we're honored to have other guests as well speaking to us as experts today. We're here today to talk about sustainability, a word that has quietly entered our lexicon and become central to all domains of work and life. Curiously, sustainable development as a phrase was coined only in 1969 and is just 3 years older than I am. Interestingly, the single-use plastic bag was patented around the same time in Sweden and soon went on to replace cloth and other reusable bags. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. The world as we find it today is getting hotter and climate fluctuations are real. We're set to live in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And suddenly everyone is worried about sustainability. The United Nations, as you may be aware, adopted the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. National governments have made commitments towards this. And interestingly, the same Sweden, which gave us plastic bags, stands right on top, third in the SDG rankings, while India is at 121 out of the 163 countries that were measured. Corporate organizations today are also talking about sustainability through environment, social, and governance mandates, and are looking beyond economic profits alone. And all this is being pushed by civil society. People like you and me, and nonprofit organizations who are advocating and working for sustainable environments and societies. Technology is advancing at breakneck speed, while at the same time, resources are depleting at an alarming rate to meet our ever-growing needs. We need all hands on the deck to address the challenges that we face. Sustainability is today part of most work domains and career choices. And today we'll get a glimpse of how an engineer, an agriculture expert, and a fashion designer work on this issue. Let us look beyond the buzzwords into how we can actually work to create a sustainable present and future and make a difference through what we learn and what we do. Welcome to this session of Go Dream Big, and I hand over now to Mimi to take things forward.
Thank you, Jayapadma. And to all the students watching, Jayapadma is one of our previous panelists, and I encourage you to go on to our YouTube channel and watch her fascinating life journey, including really interesting anecdotes from rural India in the early part of her career. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. In order to access our channel, just search for Go Dream Big on YouTube, and we're the first result, so you'll find us easily. I know that you guys are watching on shared screens, but if you have individual devices into which you can log in, then you can post your audience questions there. If you go on the live stream in the chat, we will be looking for your questions. And if you don't have access to your own device, then if you could give those questions to the teacher coordinating, then we will get those questions from you and try to address them. Okay. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our expert panelists for today. To start with, Dr. Manjula Menon is on the faculty at Azim Premji University. Prior to that, she was a principal scientist at the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, where she did research and interventions in the field of sustainable livelihood. Manjula started with her bachelor's in agricultural science and then joined MSRF. While working full-time on projects there, she simultaneously got an interdisciplinary PhD in agricultural economics and pure economics, and then started studying the impact of science on society. She uses the diversity of experience in her life journey to teach students about sustainability today. So Manjula, welcome.
Hello.
Our second panelist is Rituparna Basu, who is joining us from Boston. She is a principal engineer at a national lab at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where she works on spacecraft. Rituparna did her bachelor's in mechanical engineering at BITS Pilani, and after working in India for a couple of years, she came to the United States to do her master's studying applied mechanics. She has spent her career designing, building, testing, and deploying complex and sustainable mechanical systems, from cars at General Motors, gas turbines at Siemens Energy, and defense and space systems at MIT today. She's passionate about the role of engineering, science, and technology in combating climate change. Thank you for joining us today, Rituparna.
Thank you, Mimi. Happy to be here.
And our third panelist today is Joyita Poddar Chaudhary, who's a fashion designer with her own garment label and her own jewelry brand. Joyita is a GDB alumnus. She studied at the National Institute of Fashion Technology, and she's taken on a variety of creative roles during her career, including designing upcycled fashion garments, designing industrial garments, designing furnishings, fashion waste management, as well as teaching students and established designers at NIFT and other institutes. As an entrepreneur today, she employs migrant laborer women to make custom jewelry and advocates for sustainability in garment design. So I'm very happy to have you here, Joyita.
Hi, happy to be here.
So you can see the life journeys of all these panelists on our YouTube channel as well. We will be posting those journeys in within the next day or two. So if you go on there, you'll be able to learn a lot more details about what these women who are our expert panelists here today do. And now I'm going to hand it over to our student panelists, Sumana and Gargi, to take this forward.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sumana. As Lily said, I'm going to be the student panelist for today, one of the student panelists for today. I'm going to be we're going to be acting as moderators. We're going to be here with you guys, listening to our panelists and learning from them. About me, a little bit about me. I'm studying economics right now. I'm doing my undergraduate degree in economics in Madras School of Economics. And I am very passionate about sustainability. I hope you all are as well, because as we young people know, it is our future that is on the line, and I hope you feel the same way. I hope you will engage with what is happening today, ask lots of questions, whatever questions that come to your mind, learn a lot, and of course, have fun. So that's a little bit about me.
Hey guys, I'm Gargi and I'm studying in college as well. I'm a final year student of BA Journalism, International Relations and Public Policy in a college in Bangalore. I got into this community, into this panel through one of my school teachers here, Jaya Padmadi. And I'm going to be, like Sumana said, we are going to be moderators. We are going to be a link between you guys and the panelists. We are going to fill that gap as much as possible. So we need you guys to ask as many questions as possible. I know a lot of people over here are going to use, they're going to try to make you understand stuff, but they might have some of the words they'll be using might be a little difficult for you to understand, but don't be shy to raise any questions. We are here to solve it. And no question is a stupid question. So let's go ahead, take note of stuff if you need to make the most out of this session, because we have real women over here, which it's rare to find such things, such content on the internet. So let's make the most of it.
Yes, completely agree with all that, guys. So let's start off. I want to start off with a general question that I want to pose to all three of our panelists today. So the question is, did any experience of yours with unsustainability help you to find sustainability as your career path? If not, at what point did you look at sustainability and find out that that was your calling and that is what you wanted to do? And I guess I would like to pose this question first to Joyita ma'am. Would you like to answer?
Hi, myself Joita. No, I didn't know about sustainability when I started. When I was in school, there was a project of designing the school uniform, which was about to change. I took part in it. It was so exciting. That kicked off my journey into the world of fashion and garments. After graduation, I joined NIFT. And after that, I started doing commercial stuff. I was not feeling very happy about it, though I was doing very good. Then I realized that social media driven fashion, where new things were needed every day to impress people, was setting in. That made no sense to me. Your fashion is a statement about who you are and not blindly copying whatever comes to the market as trend. No, that's not it. Mix and match and create your own fashion statement with your comfort garment. That's what I wanted to talk about. That's how I was introduced to sustainable fashion. Thank you.
Okay, that's really interesting, ma'am, on how you got into sustainability without really planning on it from the beginning. So I guess I would like to pose the same question to Manjula, ma'am. Was it a similar journey for you? How did you get into sustainability?
Yeah, thanks, Sumina. Thanks for having me here, and glad for the opportunity to be talking to the future of India. And my answer to the question relates so much to what Joyita said. My decision to join agriculture and study agriculture was not driven by any passion for understanding or engaging with the question of sustainability. But nevertheless, I don't regret that decision because the academic training that I got in the agriculture university, I feel has equipped me well to engage with the question of sustainability, the central idea of sustainability in all my later professions. A very personal and a professional investment with the centrality of sustainability, or what constitutes sustainability when we talk about sustainable as a terminology, was spurred by my first-hand exposure to the lived experiences and first-hand engagement with the livelihoods of millions of resource-poor farmers in the rural hinterlands of India. That's where my passion for really engaging with the subject started. Thank you.
Okay, so I see that even our second panelist was not directly, did not get directly into sustainability. Yeah, but there was a spark. There was a moment at which you found out that that is what you want to get into. So that is fascinating. It's a journey we would all like to hear about. But yeah, I'd like to now pose the same question to our third panelist, Rituparna ma'am.
Thanks, Samana. I have to say similar answers as Joita and Manjula. When I started my career as an engineer 20 years ago, thinking about sustainability was not a driver. I ended up working in the energy industry after I completed my master's program. And it so happened that right around that time, the world woke up fully to the threat of climate change. My whole industry pivoted, solving problems to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I was, as a young engineer, I was like, these are challenging, fun problems. I want to work on them. And then slowly, as I understood the issues, I came to realize that, oh, these solutions are also good for the environment. They're making incremental changes towards a sustainable future. So that is how I sort of luckily found my way to sustainability. You could say that I ended up being at the right place at the right time. Thank you.
Okay, that is incredibly interesting that all three of our panelists today got into sustainability a little bit later on. I think that kind of shows the direction in which our world today is going. It's almost as if you didn't really find sustainability, but sustainability found you. Can put it like that, which I really like that quite a bit. But yes, so I think that concludes this question. Gargi, on to you.
It was a great question, Sumina, and I think it concluded really well that sustainability is not just an industry, it's a cause towards which a lot of industries are working right now. It's the necessity of the hour. And so we have a PhD professor here who has done her degree in agricultural sciences. We have somebody from engineering and energy background, and we have someone from the fashion background, and all of them are working towards the same cause, environmental sustainability. We can see a very clear linkage over here. And so if any of us also may not take up a degree that necessarily goes towards sustainability, maybe we can find ourselves working towards the same cause a few years down the line. So moving on to the next question, as you guys have been working with this cause again, sustainability, do you think we are actually capable of real long-term change in this industry? Do you think there's impact being created? And given the way people in the power positions are reacting to things, do you think there is change possible? I would like to ask this to Manjula ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, Gabi. My answer to this would be yes, but with a lot of ifs and buts attached to it. The reason being, there's a cost to be paid in transitioning to a sustainable agricultural system from the present conventional system that we are following. And who really ends up paying that cost is the question that we need to address in this transitioning to ensure that our shift to sustainable agriculture practices, is also through a very just and equitable pathway. For example, I'll just take up for a comparison's sake, I'll take two systems of agriculture. One, let's imagine a very traditional organic farming system of the tribal farming nature, which requires very low inputs, but at the same time gives you very low production and also have very low returns. Compare that to a Punjab farmer who's very intensive in the way the farming is done, highly chemical input intensive, high production, and high returns in turn. Which among these two farmers do you think, cater to the, the question of supplying cheap food to a large number of masses? And which among these, act as stewards of nature, conserving nature, and ensuring sustainability in agriculture? So this is the central questions that we have to address when we talk about a blanket approach to moving to sustainable agriculture practices. Whatever recommendations that we make in terms of policies and programs have to take into account these differences in actions, motives, and the resource capabilities of people in the business of agriculture while recommending the transition. And I think the youngsters or the younger generation can bring in a lot of change by coming up with very effective solutions in terms of coming up with very low cost inputs for farming, low cost technologies for transitioning to sustainability, and also devising strategies and policies for economically incentivizing those farmers who, at the cost of lower returns and lower income from farming, conserve nature and move on to sustainable practices. So this is why I said this is not a straight yes and no answer to it. It is possible, provided all this can be put in place.
Right, that makes sense. So we need to come up with solutions that can actually really be implemented by individual farmers. We have to consider all their circumstances while looking at, how we can make transitioning to sustainable options very easy for them. That's a very good point. Thank you so much. I would like to continue with the same question with Jayita ma'am. Do you think real long-term change is possible in fashion side of sustainability?
Yeah, as Manjula said, it's not that difficult in fashion. It's much easier because we don't need a policy to guide us to what to wear. Change will come soon if we want that change in our life. Like choose skin-friendly fabrics, choose fibers that decompose easily, because once when we don't wear those clothes, they should not remain as extra garbage on Mother Earth. They should decompose fast. So that's very important. Deny commercial pressure of cheap, unsustainable products, which constantly are behind us through media advertisements. Don't fall for them. Go for some justified answer to yourself before just following them. Make choices which are driven the natural driven ones, like local, organic, green economies. Go for fabrics like cotton, jute, linen products. It's actually happening. People are conscious. We are already far ahead I mean, your generation is far ahead as to what I was conscious about at your age. Thank you. It was a lovely question.
Okay, that's also another perspective now we have over here. Fashion industry, now this depends completely on our own decisions. Everything we wear also shows what we support. So I think it's a very interesting opinion that, clothes are not just I like it, so I wear it. Clothes are also a way of showing your consciousness towards the causes that really need to be addressed. Thank you so much, Joyita ma'am. Moving on, I would like to ask a different question, another very relevant question, I believe, to Rituparna ma'am. So I have seen around me, I've seen a lot of people who have related a lot with the cause of sustainability and environmentally conscious people who have given up almost a lot of their material wants and given up a lot of the regular things we all use to create this very different lifestyle. So do everybody who get involved in careers related to sustainability, is this something we have to give up? Is this a sacrifice required?
So this is a great question. And you're right. In the past, when this was not at the forefront of, our consciousness, that has been the case. But today, given where we are at fighting climate change and going towards a sustainable future, I strongly believe that is not necessary. Because the solution to climate change, if there is one, it's not to ask people to give up on modern conveniences or, having a very alternative lifestyle. It is to ensure that all the people inhabiting the planet get to have a decent standard of living while also ensuring, a sustainable environment for our future generations. So at the end of the day, these solutions have to be fair and, economically viable for a large society, as Manjula and Joyita have said. And governments and businesses today have woken up to these issues, and there's a lot of ideas and even money flowing into, solutions for sustainable future. So keeping that in mind, today, I think sustainable career choices can have a positive impact while also providing careers that provide a good standard of living. And, you don't really have to, live in the forest or anything like that. However, I will add a point here that having said that, you don't need to sacrifice anything for a cause. But as we become aware of climate change issues around us, like we just discussed about fashion, about what we eat, etc., we can make the kind of choices that we want for a better future. But at the end of the day, that remains a personal choice. It is not required or mandatory to have a certain lifestyle to work in a sustainable field. We want you guys to be Albert Einsteins, not Mother Teresa's. But great question. Thank you.
And if I may add a quick line here, in this space, the arts might play a role. When the media and the arts hold up a mirror for us, they are often effective in changing hearts, inspire sustainable, environmentally conscious behavior.
That's again a lot of interesting points to take note of. Here I'll just brief this answer again, so we know what our takeaways are from this. The first thing is that no, we don't need to give up on a lot of things if we are getting into this cause, not live like a very organic lifestyle and everything. You don't need to. If you want to, that's definitely one option. That's a great thing, but you don't have to be under the pressure. And along with that, we need to come up with solutions that make other people want to bring that change, make it easy for them, make it possible for them, cost effective, everything that needs to be there for even us to make that change. So that's one very interesting perspective. Economics is very necessary. And moving on, these were the general questions for our panelists. Now we'll move on to specific questions based on their career fields. Sumana, over to you.
Yes, so I want to pose a specific question to Rituparna ma'am. So assuming I am a recent graduate who has a STEM degree, something in engineering and technology. So with that degree in hand, can I contribute to a sustainable world? If so, what are the ways in which I can do that?
So thanks, Sumana. Yeah, I first want to add that obviously, as you can see from the diversity of our panelists, you can pretty much work towards a sustainable future in any field with any kind of degree, because we need a diverse set of interdisciplinary skills to solve these problems. But because my focus is engineering, I will focus my answers on some of the main industries you can help impact if you're choosing a career in science and engineering. So firstly, of course, there is energy. We all need it. More and more people in the world are coming out of energy poverty, so they need, energy to sustain their lives. But it also, burning a lot of fossil fuels has caused a lot of global warming. To help design clean, renewable energy, that is a huge part of the thrust of, building a sustainable world. So energy is definitely a major field. Transportation, we all know, planes, I did not know this, are some of the worst polluters, along with, of course, cars and all of the other vehicles we use, but we need those, obviously. So moving from burning petrol, gas, to running these on renewable energy or hydrogen, we've all seen the electric cars in the market, more are coming. So, and that's going to remain a huge field because transportation is a real need. The next one that I would like to talk about is sustainable materials. So by now we all know plastics are bad for the environment. So why do we, still keep using them? Like Jaya said, plastic bags, because plastics also have all these cool material properties that we today need in the modern world. So how, if we want to give up plastics, we need to come up with new materials which are either biodegradable or that can withstand all these high temperatures that climate change might bring. So material science and engineering, that is a huge, impact, even in terms of sustainable agriculture or sustainable fashion. Basically, we use materials everywhere. Last but not least, climate change will put a lot of stress on places where humans and other animals live, like coastal cities such as Kolkata, where you are, or Boston, where I live. So how are we going to, rising sea levels, high rainfall, how are we going to deal with that? How are our cities, our structures going to deal with that? We have to come up with innovative design solutions for houses, roads, bridges, schools. So that, coming from a geology or from an architecture, urban planning background, there's a large impact there. And, these are some of the major areas I've highlighted, but there's no shortage of areas that you as a technologist can help impact with climate change. Thank you.
Okay, so it is really interesting to know that even with a quote unquote traditional degree that a lot of people would be very happy with, or a quote unquote professional degree that people would be happy with, we can still work towards a cause that you're passionate about without having to study something like environmental science in your undergrad. So that's very heartening to hear, actually. So related to this question, I think I would like to ask then, what are the specific career paths that are available to me with a STEM degree?
So that's a great question. So now you're an engineer or a scientist, you've become one. So now what? What jobs will you get as you start on your career paths, right? So obviously the first one is obvious. You can be a working engineer like I am, or a research scientist, and just work and designing and coming up with new solutions, building them, implementing them. You can build small components, you can build the large system. So that's obviously the obvious choice, but there are also many other sort of non-traditional ways that with a technological degree, you can, choose a career path. So you can work as a program manager or a project manager where you oversee, execution of these large projects, and there you're focused on costs, schedule, time. And your technological background will give you a really good sort of basis for you to efficiently execute these. You can, of course, become a research scientist, but also an academic, and you can, become a professor and teach the next generation about these innovative solutions. You can also become a policy consultant. So like I mentioned, governments and corporates are waking up to this threat. And as a policy, they're looking for good policy consultants with a good grounding in technology and understanding in the science. So what can they do from an organizational level? So to consult with those with them as a consultant, that's also a career path. And you can also advise banks and venture capitalists what kind of programs, what is really green, where should we put our money. So as a policy consultant is a great job with a STEM degree. if you want to get another degree, such as law, patent law is a huge area. So as we come up with innovative ideas, I see a lot of patents flooding the market in the next decades, and they'll need a lot of lawyers to sort of go through this, understand it. And so that's another area. And finally, I think, that if you're interested in writing and communication, you guys are doing economics, journalism, the role of a science journalist is very important, because climate change, the issues are complex, and you want to influence the local people to understand those and either make choices or convince their government to make choices. But who can do that best? It's the science communicator or the science journalist. And these are just some roles. As we understand about climate change more, as we combat it, newer roles will arise. But yeah, there are many, many ways with a STEM degree that you can make a huge impact. And I hope you guys will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a really information-rich answer. That I don't think I need to summarize, because it was very it was really good to listen to, and it was really good to know that there are so many specific things that we can do as someone with a STEM degree. But yes, Nivedita, you wanted to.
I've been wanting to ask two questions to Rituparna. Very interesting discourse. The first is, in my cafeteria, they tell me they have compostable plastic, and I kind of find it hard to believe. Should I believe them?
I think so. I'm not a material scientist, but typically if they say something, there are standards still in this country. So hopefully it is. There's a lot of cool compostable materials coming out. So again, material science is amazing.
Yeah. And, in case in point, right, they'll give us plastic cups and then they'll say it is compostable. So though it's hard to believe, as you say, I've learned to convince myself, trust the labels, trust the symbols.
Yes.
They're making a difference. The second point I wanted to kind of, touch up the point that you touched on about science journalism. I personally feel that's really, really important, because science is complex and there is a lot of different forces at play, a lot of political agendas at play that make it really hard to know how to consume the information that is being thrown at us. So that's a very interesting field that has opened up. I wasn't aware of science journalism as a career back when I was making my decisions. So just a quick comment.
Yeah, and I think personally, I have found, working with engineers and stuff, a lot of us are not very great at communicating. We should be building on those skills ourselves, but to have someone who's actually has that talent, but also has a good grounding in science, to actually understand our point of view and get it across to someone, who's not a material scientist or whatever. It's a very, very impactful role. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was really great to hear from both of you again. It is interesting that science journalism is something that was not as prevalent a few years ago, because that again shows how the world is diversifying, and how now it is at the peak of its say diversification, globalization, where new career paths are opening up for all of us. So it's truly an exciting time for all of us who are choosing our careers. So yes, moving on to the next question, Gargi.
Right. So guys, we also got to know from this that even though some of our parents might think that science has a lot more opportunity than the other subjects, we have to address this. Everything, arts, you can write policies. Policies are basically what the government decides to do about certain things. Like if electric vehicles are coming, government wants to promote it. They can subsidize it a little. They can promote its usage by decreasing the cost, making people want to buy it, using media and everything. So arts also has a lot of scope in this side. So definitely think about it, read about it, and talk to your parents about it if you're really interested. Moving on.
If I might add to that, from a perspective of a government, there are careers in government as well related to sustainability, which you touched upon, policy making, right? Policy making involves not just the budget, but it also involves laws, right? Here in California, For example, if you want to sell cars here in California, you have to sell a certain percentage of, or make available a certain percentage of electric cars. Otherwise, you cannot sell gas cars here in California. So those kinds of decisions do come in from a policy level. And that's where the government steps in and says, we need this kind of stuff to happen in this state or in the country, for example. And that is applicable everywhere in the world. So there are rules for sustainability in government as well. Back to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Piyu ma'am. Okay, the next question is for our professor in agricultural sciences and who has worked with the agriculture sector side of sustainability a lot. My question is, why does it seem so difficult to make choices which favor sustainability in agriculture, agricultural practices, while policies talk of common but differentiated goals? How does this actually translate to practice?
Thanks, Gargi, for that interesting question. As I indicated earlier, the real change agents when it comes to agriculture on ground is the farmers. And our farmers are not a uniform group, which means to say there are all kinds of farmers, differentiated by class, the richer ones, the poorer ones, differentiated by gender, the men and the women farmers, belonging to different caste systems, which also plays out in a different way in the community, coming with different resource endowments from different geographies, like maybe farmers in the hilly terrains, farmers from the coastal belts, farmers from rain shadow regions, and also with different levels of resource endowments. So what does this have to do with sustainability? So these kind of differences among these farmers plays out in terms of the extent and their experiences of vulnerabilities, and also decides the coping capacity that each one comes with, which has a huge influence on the way they would respond to recommendations on transitions to sustainability or approaches or their capability to adopt measures that we deem sustainable. It might not work out for them from an economic perspective. It might not be socially inclusive. We don't know what is happening unless we kind of factor in these differences among these farmers. So the long and short of what I'm trying to say is like practically a movement to shift to sustainable agriculture is possible, and all the impositions that we recommend in terms of transitioning, unless we are mindful of these practical differences on ground, which are sometimes very competing also, we will not be coming up with solutions which are, in the long run, practically adoptable by these farmers. So I think the answer lies there. So how do we suggest measures which are economically viable, environmentally benign, and also socially inclusive? How do we come up with policies, programs, and interventions? And I'm sure you will admit that this is an extremely fine balancing act. So this is where the difficulty lies in.
Right. So that makes sense. Whenever we come up with a solution, again, we need to look at an individual's perspective. Whatever solution we are bringing to them should be doable for them. They should be able to pay for it. They should be able to accept it, and it should yield them the results they want. So thank you so much, Manjula ma'am. Moving on, I would like to ask the next question again to you. So technical expertise versus multidisciplinary education. What do you feel is more relevant?
Here I can't agree more with my earlier panelists who spoke about, the multiplicity of career options, irrespective of the domains that you come from in the field of sustainability. So to come to your specific question, it's not an either or question, I would say. We need both of them. We need in this to grapple with this complex idea of sustainability. We need people who are jack of all trades and master of one. So that's the kind of people that we need. In my experience of working on the issues of sustainability, I've largely been fortunate to work with multidisciplinary teams who come with their own expertise and complement each other's discipline in coming up with a very socially desirable solution for the question that we are grappling with. In my academic training in agriculture, I've been exposed to a multiplicity of subjects ranging from accounting to biotechnology to engineering to legal aspects of agriculture. So there's a wide range of field that you can be part of, ranging from even the arts, I would say, and move into the field of sustainability as part of a multidisciplinary team. So here you bring in your own core disciplinary expertise plus complement and work with others in a multidisciplinary team. So my humble submission or suggestion to my younger friends would be to be the best and excel in whatever you choose to study or further in your profession, but also be at the same time open and flexible to assimilating and collaborating with other disciplines to work towards a solution, real world solutions within the realm of sustainability. So that's what you need to develop, that skill set in addition to the core disciplinary domain skill set that you will bring. I hope that satisfies.
Yeah, definitely. So what we got to know from this is that while we can choose one field and work in it and study first, then work in it, we'll have to be open to other subjects, people from other career backgrounds whose opinions and perspectives will help us solve problems more easily. While sustainability, like we discussed, so many industries are involved in it. Even in the agriculture side, even when we are trying to make rural lifestyle more sustainable or even urban lifestyle more sustainable, we'll have to incorporate expertise of a lot of different fields, career fields, people with a lot of different sets of knowledge. uh, so I think this gives us one more takeaway, that is, while we have our own subjects in schools and colleges, we should keep our minds open, try to know more about other fields, and this session is one thing that you guys are doing that is towards that, so that's great again. uh, Moving on, Sumana, would you like to take the next question?
Yes, so that was a very interesting question. I actually want to ask a question now to Joyita ma'am. So the question is, as consumers, so moving a little bit out of the producer point of view and moving to the consumer point of view, how is it that we can make smart choices to embrace sustainability in fashion? I think that this correlates to what you were talking about earlier about you as a human being and how you make choices about your fashion. So I think we would just like a little bit of elaboration on this particular aspect.
Thank you. It's a lovely question, extension question, lovely one. It's like we need to raise our awareness and we will automatically choose wisely. I mean, we need to keep few things in mind. Like, let me give you an example. There are companies who print their logos all over or a particular pattern and color on all their products. Because they're expensive, they are status symbol, people love to possess them. Now, when you are wearing one of those in public, you are actually acting as the brand ambassador of that particular brand without a single cost borne by the company. See how they're using you. Is that a smart choice? Think about it. Also, we have to be conscious about we have to be conscious about greenwashing, which is like, companies who are using words like natural or organic in a wrong way, and they are charging you extra, but you are not sure of it, whether you are actually paying extra for some good reason. So it's very simple. Just Google it. There are some keywords and there are some symbols of standardization which are there quite easily available. So if we can have some knowledge about those, I think we can make smart choices. We need to educate ourselves. That's it. And it's not a very big rocket science to educate as to the fact that I am using something which is natural and which decomposes fast. So it's simple as we have to be smart to make smart choices. Thank you.
Okay, so that is interesting to know that all the information is out there and it is on us. It's true that it is on us to look it up and do our homework, even in every choice, especially with fashion. So yes, that is very interesting to know. I think we can take a question from the audience now, if we have interesting questions from the audience.
Yes, we do have a couple of really interesting questions from the audience. In fact, we have more than a couple, but we will not have the time to answer all of them. But please keep sending your questions, and we'll try to pick the ones we can answer in, while we are live, and then we'll follow up by answering the rest on the chat. Sumana, do you want to go ahead? You're on mute.
Yes. So I think I want to ask a question to Rituparna ma'am. So given the world population, how can we provide everyone with a good standard of living while keeping sustainability in mind, given how it's booming, given how it's already very, very large? We recently hit a very large number. So how is it possible to do this?
That's a great question. There's no real easy answer to that. At various times in human history, we've always thought that, oh my God, we're running out of resources. So the short answer for me, when I think about this, it can be a little bit pessimistic, but I like to think that human ingenuity is the answer to that question. But also, of course, we're trying to, having less people on the planet would also be a great start. But apart from that, I think it is, also policy choices. And I think that also reducing or, our lifestyle today is very different from how people lived 100 years ago, or, obviously 500 years ago. And the question is, do we really need, all this stuff, all this? I think one of our discussions, Manjula brought up a good point about how much food waste we have. And, I was aghast to find that almost 30% of the food that is grown, goes to waste. So, and the way we have built, so I think using science, technology, policy, that's number one. And also changing our behavior, not living in the way that probably we've lived for the second half of the 20th century and maybe the first decade of the 21st. I would say those would be the two top things.
Okay, so yes, so I really do resonate with the first point that you talked about human ingenuity, because in fact, when at one point everyone did believe that by a certain point in the 21st century we would all run out of food, and it is human engineering, GMO, things like that, and our utilization of space, our efficiency, that helped us survive past that limit. So yes, human ingenuity, I totally resonate with that. I think we can move on to a second audience question. Gargi, if you would.
Okay, so the second question we got from the audience is actually, it's a very interesting question, very imaginative actually. If this question is for Manjula ma'am, if all human beings participate, if all of us get together and, dedicatedly that we want to change this whole thing and not be worried about sustainability anymore, change all our systems, how long do you think it will take before we can bring that change?
Well, quite an interesting question, but unfortunately, I don't think I can give you a time horizon. But I would still be, optimistic and say that if each one of us, in our personal capacities as well as in our professional capacities, do the one right thing, one step at a time, we would be reaching there soon enough. So what do we do as consumers? Can we be responsible consumers? Something like Ritu, Joyita, everybody has pointed out, can we be responsible consumers and bring the idea of sustainability in the way we consume things, like food waste, reducing, not going by the fast fashion style statements and keeping on replacing your clothes or things like that. And as professionals, as like Ritu, Joyita, and everybody in the panel has pointed out, in our own respective professions, can we think of, bringing or contributing to this real world solutions that people are grappling and trying to figure out in conferences after conferences after conferences in the UN climate change conferences, can we contribute constructively by bringing in solutions that can ensure equity and justice, social justice in the way it gets adopted? I think if all of us put our hands and head together and do our own little bit, whatever it is, I'm not saying like, I'm not measuring it by the extent and the quantity of how much you contribute, whatever little that you do, I think we should be there soon enough, though it will be difficult for me to put a time horizon and say like, maybe in our lifetime, that's how I would say it, in our lifetime.
Yeah, that's a
I should qualify saying that I'm a diehard optimist.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on, we'll take the next question from the audience. Sumana?
Yes, so the next question from the audience is for Joyita ma'am. So you were talking about doing our research and buying garments that are better for the environment. And part of that means they decompose easier than other garments. But the question is, if we do choose garments that decompose easily, won't that decrease the longevity of the garment itself? What effect does that have on how it looks and how it feels while we're wearing it?
Oh, that's a lovely question and very interestingly asked. Whoever asked, thank you. This needed discussion. So it's like when I say decompose, it's not decomposing tomorrow morning. So it would take a decade to decompose, but it should decompose. It should go back to Mother Earth as a fertilizer or something important. So that's important. I'm not saying today you buy and tomorrow, because what happens, a lot of artificial fabrics have come in, a lot of artificial fibers are used, which in 50 years, in 60 years will also not decompose. It's like plastic in another form to create fibers or create fabrics. So my point is use natural fabrics and fibers so that over more than a decade, they actually decompose and give back Mother Earth something. And one point I would like to also add over here, I am a fashion designer from NEFT. I've done designing as my main subject, but fashion designing is in real demand of farmers and engineers, my two other panelists, expert panelists here, because we need to do a lot of research as to how to create and how to cultivate more and more natural fibers. So it's not that fashion means it's always something very glamorous and dressing up like this, that picture is there, but that's just a part. We need a lot of engineers and farmers. So keep that in mind because you're going to choose careers for yourself. Thank you.
So if I can just add to that, Sumana, from what I can gather from what everybody has said, is that sustainability is something that is necessary from end to end. So you need sustainability at the production phase. You need sustainability in the use phase of the product. So the entire life cycle of the product, sustainability plugs in everywhere. You also need to have sustainability at the end. There is some producer responsibility in a certain sense, right? So you have to make sure that the product itself is able to decompose, as Joyita said. So that's all I had to add to that. So thank you.
Can I add one quick point? And I work in biotechnology, and we have specific end of life plan for our products. Not everything will decompose, but it is the manufacturer's responsibility to plan how to get all of that properly taken care of and not just become junk on Earth.
And that's a lot of industrial engineering as well, right? I mean, companies like Apple, companies like, all these other big companies, all the product that they put out, it's not just the phone itself that they need to recycle or do something with, but it's also all the packaging material and everything else. How is that sustainably disposed of? So that's what I mean. From end to end, you have to figure sustainability into that picture.
Okay, so that was a good discussion. I'm happy we heard from so many of us. So the person who asked this question, I think that, as Joyita ma'am said, just to summarize, that that your clothes decomposing does not mean that it will decompose in any way when you're wearing it or when it's in your closet even. It is going to be much later on. Clothes being able to decompose is just that, the ability to decompose. And we're just ingraining that into the clothes and not adding things to them that will stop them from decomposing for the next 300 years. So that is what we don't want. So yes, just to summarize that point. Yes, I think we are just about out of time right now. So Gargi, we would move on to the closing question.
Okay, I have one last question and I'm very curious to know this. This is for Nivedita ma'am. Being a novelist, how have you impacted sustainability?
Yeah, this was an interesting question. And I just wanted to, my novel is not about sustainability. It's about a mathematician from the 19th century. But what I did want to bring up was when I was researching all of that, I realized they had a life, very interesting, very fulfilling life without all the gadgets and overload of everything that we have today on Earth. So it's a learning moment. If you immerse yourself in alternative ways of living, if you look for it, there are answers. So I wanted to take the question up just to address this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So how much time do we have? Can we take some more?
I think, Gargi, let's move on to our final question at this point.
I think Gargi might be having some net issues. While she's reconnecting, let me just pose this question to panelists. So the last question for today is something that I think everyone is going to answer. Everyone here is going to answer, including me, we're going to try to give you an interesting answer to this. And the question is, we're asking for one tip on how to live a sustainable life. Just one small thing that you guys can do right now, that you guys can either do or change right now in order to live a slightly more sustainable life. So I guess we can start with our past panelists. Nivedita ma'am, I guess we can start with you, just one tip.
Sure, my tip or my personal crusade is to reduce stuff in my life. Less clothes, less utensils, less of everything. That's my one little crusade.
Okay, thank you for that. For you, ma'am, how about you? Ma'am, I think you're on mute. Okay.
Sorry,
So
technical issues. Similar to Nivedita, I have a crusade, and that is trying to use reusable bags every time I go out to the grocery store. And I pay penance if I do not take my reusable bag to the grocery store. Is I carry out my items over multiple trips from the store to my car and from the car to the house. So it's the price I pay for not having carried my own reusable bags. And I still remember, in my lifetime, I've seen things go from cloth and other bags, you used to carry your own stuff, to the advent of plastic ubiquitously. And so it's something I would like to see change in my lifetime as well.
okay. How about you, Jaypadma? One tip on a sustainable life, how to live a sustainable life.
So many things that could be done, some quite easily, like what's been shared, and some will take a bit of thought. One thing I've been pondering about is how many minutes or hours each day can we spend without dependence on any active electricity? So whether it be the fan, the light, these gadgets, can you do it even for a few minutes every day where you are not in an environment of active electricity? And I'd like to add one more, a tip, because you are all at the cusp as students moving out of school in a few years or soon enough for some of you. What Manjula said earlier, what Nive talked about while writing her book, for me, what was a turning point in understanding issues of sustainability was when I spent 2 weeks in a village in Jhabua in Madhya Pradesh, where I lived with a family of tribal people, and there was no electricity, no toilets, no running water. The house did not have a door. So all this shows you, how life can be simply lived and people are happy. So I think it just helps to move out of our urban settings and see another way of life. And that I would seriously encourage all of you when you get an opportunity to go live in a village.
Okay, that's really interesting because in fact, we're entering an era, we have been in an era where we're getting increasingly disconnected from that kind of life. So to go back to see that would be really interesting, really required, I think, at this point. And Mimi, ma'am, how about you?
Well, I think everyone's making really interesting points. It's making me think that, this is going back to the age of simple living, high thinking, which I think is a great principle, of India from many years ago. I would like to add something which we can practice just living in the city, and most of you watching this do live in the city, and that's transportation. So I live in the United States, and most of the families here have 2, if not 3 cars. But I live in New York City, which has great public transportation. So we as a family have decided to give up our cars. We don't have a car. And so I take public transportation everywhere, or I walk, or I bike, and it's working out great. So I'm not saying that everybody has to give up their car, but I am saying, keep in mind, do you really need to get in a car every time you go out of the house? Can you walk to some places? What are your other options? Think about that first before you get in your car.
Okay, thank you so much. Gadu, if you would ask today's panelists this question.
You're asking me for an answer?
Also, yes.
I don't know. There's so many things. Yeah, I mean, there are so many things they have all mentioned. And throughout the discussion, we have talked about, how one person makes a change, and how we are expecting everybody, most of us, to make a change, small changes, and how it, turns out to be. I believe one change that I can start with again, I'm going to be 6 months down the line, I'm going to be out of college. One thing that I would really like to do is keep connected to this cause in any way possible. And I think that is what I would encourage everybody to be doing. Don't just forget about this panel that it happened once when we were in grade 9th or something. We saw these women on in our school, and they said a few things, and we just went back to normal life. Make things change you, get something from it. I think this is what I really want to do. And we'll give you contacts of all these people. We'll be putting out videos as well on the YouTube channel through which you can know about their journeys. I think one thing we can all do here is try to stay connected with the cause by interacting with them, asking them where we can help. If there's any awareness campaign we can run anywhere in the cities or in the rural parts of India. I think after college, there's going to be one takeaway from this panel, that I would like to stay connected with this cause.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We're now moving on to the panelists that we had on today. Joyita ma'am, how about your tip for living a sustainable life?
My tip would be cook at home, make simple food, carry tiffin. Try to eat less from the commercial kitchen. That's my takeaway from here.
That is a very doable thing. I appreciate that. Okay. Manjula ma'am, how about you?
Yeah, I would say like something which can be implemented right away in your next meal. Take onto your plate only as much as you can eat, fill into your glass only as much as you can drink. So that's for you, sustainable consumption to start with the next meal. Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you. Ritupurna ma'am, how about you?
And keeping with the food theme, my tip is that, eat a more sustainable plant-based diet. I'm I'm a food loving Bengali, so, giving up meat and fish, or, that's a bit hard, but I'm still going to try to do it because that's unsustainable for the planet. So yeah, that would be great. Not everything, you don't have to give it up, but reduce the consumption of meat.
Okay, thank
And
you so
carry
much.
water bottles everywhere.
Yes.
Using
Yeah. So I guess the first point that you said really resonates, because instead of telling someone to give up everything, like meat altogether, I think everyone here should know, everyone who's watching should know that even a reduction in consumption of any bad thing is good. It is a step in the right direction. So it's not all or nothing. It's incremental steps do count, they do matter. And I guess I would just like to add one thing. It is also about food. So I come from a family where my father is my parents are farmers, and we farm a lot of staples, a lot of fruits and vegetables. And I guess the tip would be for you guys to research a little bit about what you're actually eating. Because when you look closely at it, there are a lot of places that sell food in unsustainable ways, exploitative of farmers, things like that. So whenever we can, it would be good if we can switch to organic shops which have fair practices towards farmers. So I think that would be my tip for a sustainable life.
All right. Are we, yeah, Manju, you have.
No, I just, because you Gargi and Sumana kept mentioning as professor, so I thought I had something to end in a positive note to my young friends sitting out there and listening to us, to tell them that how lucky they are and how they are, positioned at a time and space where the whole world is thinking and talking about sustainability, and they are engaging with the subject at a very young age. And one thing I want to tell them is, like, you have great opportunities in front of you, because even going by what the new education policy is spelling out in terms of redesigning universities as transdisciplinary knowledge spaces, I think you are greatly positioned in terms of, the kind of academic, orientation that you're going to get in your UG programs and the career paths that you will be in a position to pursue after that. So this is from a university, because we ourselves are redesigning, rethinking about our UG programs, which is, I think it's a one step forward towards, giving that multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary space.
Yes, definitely. And I think that all you guys should use the opportunities that you get and research and look up places that you can do an multidisciplinary undergrad. I think that will really help all of you.
So I know it's time to wrap up, but there are several other interesting questions on the chat. So what we're going to do right after wrapping up, the panelists are
We can't hear
We're
you.
not able to hear you.
There, you're back.
Oh, I'm back now? That was very strange. Sorry about that. I was just saying that even though we have to wrap up now, there are several more very interesting questions in the chat. So what we are going to do right after we end this call, we are going to go on to the chat, and the various panelists are going to answer the questions. So you can come back in a few minutes, or in an hour or two, and you'll be able to see the answers to your questions on the chat if you come back to the YouTube video after a little bit.
Yeah, I do encourage you to, go check our career playlist, as I mentioned, for interesting career journeys of the panelists that you met today, and those from previous sessions in a career track that may be of interest to you. And subscribe to our channel so that we can continue to feed you with stuff that, materially influences your lives in a direction that you like. And I will also take this opportunity to say thank you to everybody for supporting this initiative. Our panelists, Rituparna, Manjula, Joyita, our alumni panelists, Mimi, Jayapadma for driving this whole thing, Pew for joining us today, and heartfelt thanks to our student panelists, Shumana and Gargi. We loved it that you put the questions to us and, took us through this interesting hour. And certainly to Mrs. Khaitan ma'am and Mrs. Nath ma'am from the Ashok Hall group of schools, Mrs. Preeta Sen, Ms. Mayuri Burman and Ms. Proma Rai from GD Birla Girls High School for facilitating this for us. So glad we are able to reach the students through the support that you show us. Sister Anna Maria and Mrs. Shukona Mukherjee from St. Joseph's at Chandanagar and others who shared the flyer and who've gotten out the word for us. Heartfelt thanks. And with that, we will wrap this fantastic session today. Until next time.
Go dream
Go
big.
dream
Go
big.
dream big.
Thank you.
Give me a moment. I need to figure out how to stop the live stream.